have in your deliverables right behind your PowerPoint is a 2009 overview, improvement plan overview. It's a stapled together packet. So what I want to say right now is the things that we're about to talk about, everything that we're about to talk about is in this packet. We purposely didn't give you this for pre-work because sometimes for you to read this and then come actually kind of confuses or brings more questions than you actually need to have at this very moment. So what I am going to do is I'm going to walk you through this packet basically during this presentation. You'll have this to keep, and it'll be basically your research booklet for everything improvement plan moving forward, as well as a place for you to actually like dive in and reflect on after you leave here, and then come to your IMT with questions about later. So I do want to note that if you're feeling like, wow, this is a lot of information, it is actually all in here. We just didn't have you read it beforehand. Okay, so the improvement plan at a glance. So the way that we, I guess, collect data for the improvement plan is through a core member data tool. We're not going to engage in the data tool here today because it's not really, that's not the purpose of this session, is not to get you accustomed to the data tool. But the data tool does help us track both professionalism concerns for core members, instructionalism concerns for core members, as well as effectiveness data on all of the teaching as leadership rubric rows. Let's see, what else? Core member advisors will input this data ongoing. If you've been at the Institute in the past few years, you know that we only evaluate core members on the rubric at week 3 and week 5. But professionalism and instructional concerns are inputted ongoing. So CMAs, this is a tool that CMAs use probably every day in their work at the Institute. The process looks a little bit like this. So core member advisors input ongoing professionalism and instructional concerns. Sometimes those concerns, maybe 1 or 2 of them happen, a core member is on track for the rest of Institute, and we never really look at that core member's concerns again. For other people, there becomes patterns. Patterns of not turning things in on time, patterns of coming to sessions late. And in that case, those patterns start to inhibit that core member from really being able to be successful, not only for their sake, but for their students' sake. And in that case, that's when we would think about putting a core member actually on an improvement plan. Why? Because they need additional support. And they need additional support in order to meet their goals. From there, you can either be released from an improvement plan, so we set goals for you, we set actions that we feel like are going to help you meet those goals. You meet those goals, you're on track to completing Institute successfully, you're released from an improvement plan. Or we set goals for your improvement plan, we set actions that align to those goals, you actually continue to not be able to meet those goals, and we eventually decide that based on the concerns that we have and the goals that you've been unable to meet, that we're actually going to release you from the core and a dismissal would happen. One second. In addition, we have a serious offense. A serious offense, just like when Crystal talked about earlier, when something like a serious offense happens, an investigation will occur that will be run by me or by Crystal. And so at that point, you actually get removed from the entire process. If the investigation leads to those accusations being true, then a core member can be dismissed. If the accusations are not true, we can dismiss the accusations and we move about our business. Or sometimes the accusations can actually kind of fizzle out to be things that are more minor infractions, but they do show some pattern of improvement that's necessary, and we actually can put a core member on an improvement plan in that case as well. So that's kind of the process that we have so far here. The last thing I want to note, there you go. What's your name again?
Brian.
Brian. That Brian asked about down there is that because, well, not because, the entire purpose of an improvement plan is to help core members improve. If a core member shows that even after going through this plan, they cannot meet the professional expectations that we have for all core members, we can choose to dismiss the core member. However, the bar of showing whether or not a core member is instructionally ready to move into the region, let me see how the best way to say this, and I already practiced it, now I forgot. Basically, we don't have a consistent enough bar to show whether a core member is instructionally ready to go into the classroom. We definitely have the Teaching as Leadership rubric. We know that core members who reach 90, I think on average 90%, are much more likely to make significant gains, but we haven't been able to distill kind of the breaking point of this core member is ready, this core member is not, for sure. And because we don't have that consistent bar, we actually are choosing not to dismiss core members for purely instructional reasons this year. What that means for us. It means a couple of things. One, it means that we are still going to do whatever we can to support that core member, and more importantly, to ensure that the students of that core member still succeed this summer. And we would do that whether we have an improvement plan or not. I have examples of SDs who have had to teach lessons for core members before, because ultimately at the end of the day, it was getting close to the end of institute, students weren't learning what they needed to learn, and that actually was more important than this core member teaching for 2 more days. I'm not saying that that's going to be the case for all institutes, but that's like an example I can think of where at the end of the day we are going to do what's best for kids. So that's on the institute side, that's like one thing we can kind of do to make sure that we're doing what's best for kids. And then on the regional side, Crystal and I have agreed on this, that like we are going to do whatever we can to ensure that if there are core members that are in the situation where you actually feel like we're not sure if they're ready to go into the region and teach, that regional program staff, in particular EDs and MDPs, have very specific knowledge of who those core members are and what it is they're struggling with. Some of you who've been on regional programming in the past may be thinking, oh, you mean that like they're going to pass the information from the tracker to the tracker because I'm a PD and I get this information? And we're talking actually even above and beyond that. Like we're talking about literally at the end of institute being able to say to ED from so-and-so, these are the 3 core members that we actually are very concerned about. These are the reasons why we're very concerned. And these are the steps that we actually think you should take between now and when the first day of teaching to ensure that they are ready to go into their classrooms. In addition to that, we're going to be doing research throughout this entire year to figure out what is that like minimum bar that we can apply fairly and consistently across the entire institute. And the last piece of this is that there is the case that someone gets put on an improvement plan for instructional concerns and then actually chooses not to follow through with the goals and actions that we've all agreed upon. If that happens, that actually becomes a professionalism concern. So I have these goals and actions because I know that I'm struggling with communicating high expectations for behavior. My CMA has sat down with me. We've talked about how I'm going to complete all of these action steps. I have all the tools I need to be able to do this, and I choose not to do them. That then becomes a professionalism concern, and core members can be, like we just said, dismissed for professionalism concerns. Does that mean that they are absolutely going to be? No, because all of this is done on a case-by-case basis. Your SMDI is the final decision maker on that and will be your thought partner in figuring out what's really best for kids in the fall, kids this summer, and for this core member, and for our movement as a whole to ensure that we're making the best decision about it. Woo! That was a lot of information. Thank you for being so patient with me. Now, questions.